Hi, my name is Ranjan Bhattacharya. I'm your event host for the Baker Street Property Meet. Now today we've just heard some news from the Bank of England that several banks have failed stress tests. We'll see how that pans out for funding availability from the major banks. But increasingly people are looking outside of the major banks as a source of capital, a source of finance to fund their property projects. And I'm here with Davin Puensi, and he is founder of SimpleEquity, and you're one of these new crowdfunding sites, aren't you?
Yes, indeed. Crowdfunding is really taking off. We've been in crowdfunding generally for about 3 years with our peer-to-peer site, which got its full license. We were an interim, like about 95% of everybody else, and a lot of them still are. We got our full license on Friday, which is great news. And along with that, as we talked to more developers and we realized that they wanted equity, about 3 months ago, August, we started SimpleEquity, and that has really taken off and is absolutely flying.
So tell us a little bit about if I've got a development project and I want some funding, how do I go about raising it from a crowdfunding platform's website?
Well, the main thing is to get your project down on paper and get it ready and know what you're going to be doing with it, know your numbers, know what your security is, make sure it is in your control. Because one of the first things we do is we tell the world what an amazing project that this is and what an amazing developer you are. If you don't have it under control, someone can swoop in. So you need to have an option or a delayed contract on it. Or you can actually own it outright as well and actually refund underneath. So you could fund something, purchase it, get it going, and actually then get the crowd to almost refund underneath. You go off and do something else with your cash again, and you just keep rinsing and repeating that model. Equity in particular is very, very flexible. There's lots of different things you can do.
So by equity, this is people not actually lending the developer money, but participating by buying shares in the developer's limited company that they've set up for that development project. Is that right?
Exactly that. Exactly that. It's basically you create a company based around the project you're doing that owns the asset, and you sell shares in it. It pretty much is as simple as that.
So typically, the developer will have the property in what they call a special purpose vehicle, a limited company.
Yes.
They will have some bank finance, say a bridging loan or a developer loan of some kind.
Yep.
And that chunk that you normally have to put down as a deposit, that is what you're inviting investors to participate in equity terms. Is that it?
It can be that chunk. The main thing to remember is that investors, like all of us, want to know that the developer has some skin in the game. So they need a vested interest in making sure it works. So yes, you'll absolutely often have the senior debt at the beginning, then you'll have the equity added on the end. And that's why the equity is quite attractive for investors, because it tends to attract a fairly good return. Obviously, you need to understand your risk, because obviously the senior debt will have first call, and the developer and the investor win together and lose together. So there's a lot of making sure that everybody's in it together. So
when I go on your site as an investor, I'm looking at all the great projects on there. What due diligence have you done before you've listed those projects on your platform?
So we will look at the we'll look at the developer and check they are who they say they are. We'll have a look at their history. We'll look at the asset as well. But the key thing is that you as an investor are making the decision if you want to invest and how much risk you want to take. So it's very important that you understand risk. There are pages on our website that will help you learn about risk, and you can always talk to us as well.
So obviously that bit of due diligence is down to them in terms of whether they're making the investment decision.
Yes.
And you guys are doing the regulatory checks to check high net worth and all of this stuff?
Yes. So when you register on the system, there's a fairly simple process. You have a look at the 3 main categories, have a read, decide which one fits you, which one you are in, and you basically tick a box to say that is the category I'm in. It could be a retail investor, a sophisticated investor, or a high net worth. Then you go through what's called an appropriateness test, which is 4 questions, which are us checking that you understand the risks and how this investment process works. And it's things like whether or not you can get your money back quickly if you change your mind, and whether or not you can lose with the developer. Sorry.
Okay. So, tell us a little bit about the variety of projects that are getting funded on your on your platform, and the kind of risk level there is for investors participating.
So it's very interesting. We've got a small a small rent-to-rent company who are growing very, very fast, doing really, really well. Now, in some terms, there's a lot of risk there because there's no security. It is them doing their rent-to-rent business and giving quite a high return, and the risk in that respect reflects the return. We also have a really big project which got funded recently, 1.4 million. We funded that in 9 days. That's actually quite a high return, but the risk is that you are the equity at the top. The project itself is a lovely old boys club which is getting redeveloped, so it will get flattened, rebuilt with flats on top. They are working with the boys club and the local community. So getting permission, planning permission, I think there's a good chance. You have to do your own due diligence and make your own decision, of course. Then they move forward and build everything. Now, let's say that something went wrong and they didn't get permission. The reality is, with the community behind them, they'll get a different permission. Or that's what I feel, and that's why I would invest in that. But actually, you can't invest in that one because it's gone.
Is there an opportunity to actually meet the developers behind this, or do you have to make your investment decisions purely on the prospectus the documents that you put online?
So potentially you could meet the developer. It really depends on how the developer feels and whether they want to do maybe even an open day. Now what we do is, given that there are tens, hundreds, potentially thousands of investors looking at a project, there'll be lots of questions that come up, some that you might not have thought of. And it's that typical scenario where you're in a room full of people, one person asks a question, and actually everybody wants to know the answer because they didn't think of the question, or they thought of it but didn't want to ask. What happens is the question comes in, we'll collate all the questions, sometimes we'll answer them if we can do that, but often we'll get the developer to answer all the questions. It goes out to everyone. Everyone gets to learn, and that's one of the extra benefits of investing in this type of crowdfund. You get to learn from people doing really big projects, and you get to see lots of detail, and you'll have questions, but you can ask.
I think we've got to wrap up because we've more or less run out of time. But I think obviously you'll agree that over the next few years, crowdfunding is just going to grow from strength to strength because crowdfunding or funds is the fuel of any property business, and access from the major high street lenders is often uncertain, and if it is available, it's often not available within the time constraints that developers need to act. And that's where you guys can really come into play, because you mentioned an example of a deal that was funded in 9 days. How long did it take to prepare that deal for listing on the platform before it found the funds?
We actually went from meeting the developer, getting all the T's and C's sorted, to deciding that we wanted to work together and this was going to work within about a week. Once we then made that decision, the project was actually up on the site within 2 days, possibly a day.
Right. So a week behind the scenes, a little more than a week to get 1.4 million of funding, and that would be a challenge through any high street bank, I'm sure.
Yeah, yes, it
Anyone would agree. Okay, plenty more videos like this on the YouTube page. Do subscribe for more. If you want to experience Baker Street Property Meet for yourself, the best thing to do is to come down to one of our live events. We meet on the last Wednesday of every month, and it's a chance to network with 200 property investors and learn from some great property people. Thank you very much, Davin.
Thank you.
And bye for now.